Hi guys, this is lesson 4.3, comparing and ordering fractions, decimals, and percents. Okay, so the biggest thing you need to know about this lesson, you've already learned about fractions, decimals, and percents, how to change them from fractions to decimals to percents, and decimals to percents, and decimals to fractions, so on and so forth. But when you're comparing and ordering fractions, decimals, and percents, you must write the numbers as all fractions, all decimals, or all percents. So this is so important. This definitely should go in your notes. I'm going to say it again because this is the main important information you need from this lesson. When comparing and ordering fractions, decimals, and percents, write the numbers as all fractions, all decimals, or all percents. Okay, example 1a. We're going to just compare which is greater, 3 over 20 or 16%. So you can decide to make them both fractions or both percents. For this situation, we're going to make them all percents. So we're going to write 3 over 20 as a percent. So one of the methods we learned was to make the denominator 100. So we can do that by multiplying by 5 to the top and the bottom to make it 100. Therefore, based on the definition of percents, it's 15%. So since 3 over 20 is 15%, we can see that 15% is less than 16%, so 16% is the greater number. All right, so that's just as simple as it is. So now we can start the next one, B, which is greater, 79% or 0.08. You can do this two ways. You can make them both percents or both decimals, which is very simple because if you remember, that's just moving the decimal. We're going to make 79% as a decimal in order to compare them, just because that's just the way we picked it. And so you just move the decimal point twice to the left, giving you 0.79. So once you look at them, you can say, oh, 0.79 is greater than 0.08, so 79% is the greater number. All right, easy as that. So we're going to move on to example 2. You, your sister, and a friend each take the same number of shots as a soccer goal. You make 72% of your shots, your sister makes 19 over 25 of her shots, and your friend makes 0.67 of his shots. Who made the fewest shots? So what we're going to do is we're going to just put them all into decimals. So you could have put them all as percents, all as fractions, it doesn't matter. Keep in mind, if you make them as fractions, you have to have a common denominator. That way you can really compare the numerator. But in this case, we're going to make them all decimals. So for you, 17% is the same as 0.72. You just move that decimal. Keep in mind, any part of this video, if I'm going too fast, just pause it or rewind it. But for your sister, we're going to make it a decimal. So again, our method was to make a denominator of 100. Once you do that, technically this is 76%, but it's also 76 in the hundredths place. Okay? So you can easily put the 76 in the hundredths place to get 0.76. All right, because they're both read as 76 hundredths or 76 hundredths. It's the same thing. All right, so now we have 0.72, 0.76, and your friend who makes 0.67. So now we're going to graph the decimals on a number line. You don't have to graph it. At this point, you could easily compare it, but graphing it is a way to visually see the order from least to greatest. So if you were to graph these on a number line, 0.67 would obviously comes first, and then 0.72 and 0.76. So 0.67 is the least number, so your friend made the fewest shots. Okay, so that's a few awesome methods that you can use when comparing. So next example, last example too. The map shows the portions of the U.S. population that live in 5 states. We have to list the states in order by population from least to greatest. Okay, so we're going to begin by writing each portion as a fraction, decimal, or percent. Keep in mind, this is not the only way to compare, but it is a pretty cool way to see all the different ways you can write it. So if we make a table and we list all of our states that we have, Michigan, New York, Washington, California, and Ohio, we simply plug in what we know. For Michigan, we knew 0.03. For New York, we knew 6%. For Washington, we knew 1/50. California, we knew 0.12. And for Ohio, we knew 1/25. Then you can just plug in anything you don't know. So for Michigan, we could just move our decimal and make it 3%. We could put it 3/100, and so on and so forth for all of these. Keep in mind, you didn't have to do all the fractions, all the decimals, and all the percents. You could have chosen to make them all decimals or just all percents. You didn't have to make this whole table. But this is a great way to show you all of them all at once. So you can then pick, do you want to do all percents, do you want to do all decimals or fractions, or just go the extra mile and make the entire table. So once you've done this, a great way to visually compare these amounts is to, again, graph it on a number line. So if we graphed our percents on the number line, we can see obviously the order. Now, did you have to graph it? No. You could easily see that 2% comes first, and then 3% comes second, and 4% goes third. So you don't have to graph it, but again, graphing it is a great visual tool to see the order of some numbers or some percents. So if you ever get stuck in a difficult situation and you're not exactly sure visually which one comes first, you can easily graph it to get a better visual representation of the order from least to greatest. So this is our graph, and it says here list the first 5 states. So I went back and read what I needed to do. List the 5 states in order for population from least to greatest. So this table automatically gives me least to greatest. So now I just need to write in a sentence. The states in order from least to greatest are Washington, Michigan, Ohio, New York, California. So see how easy that is? Once it's in the graph, you just write them in order. Washington, Michigan, Ohio, New York, California. All right. That is all today's lesson. Very simple. Keep in mind the main thing that you needed to know, if we go back, was this part right here. When comparing and ordering fractions, decimals, and percents, write the numbers as all fractions, all decimals, or all percents. The only clincher is with the fractions, make sure that they all have the same denominator. That way you just have to compare the numerator. All right, go ahead and get started on your classwork.